In silence as we honor our troops both home and abroad who protect us tirelessly every day. Thank you.
I hereby announce that pursuant to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, an adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in the notice, which was sent to the Asbury Park Press and posted on the bulletin board in Township Hall and filed in the Township Clerk's office on January 5th, 2018. Roll call. Mayor Fratelli?
Here.
Mr. Quintempo?
Here.
Mr. Hines?
Here.
Mr. Nicholas?
Here.
Mr. Pascucci?
Here.
You have a quorum, Mayor Fratelli.
Thank you. I'd like to start by calling Timmy McDonald to the front. Hello, Tim.
How's it going, Mayor?
Good, thank you. Stand right there for me. How are you tonight?
Pretty good, can't complain. How about yourself?
Doing well. I am proud to speak about a proclamation of bravery that we're issuing tonight. Whereas the Township of Holmdel is pleased to honor Timmy McDonald, a true miracle that stands here before us. And whereas Timmy was a 2012 Holmdel High School graduate who excelled in basketball, football, and academics, and was accepted into Rutgers University. And whereas on October 4th, 2014, both Timmy and his family's lives were forever changed when he was struck by a drunk driver and suffered a severe, life-threatening head injury. And whereas the medical team of Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital advised Timmy's family to prepare for the worst, where Dr. Gracias expressing Timmy would most likely not make it, but was hoping he would be wrong. And whereas while being wheeled away to surgery, Timmy's mother, Claire, yelled out, "Fight, Timmy, fight!" And fight he did. And whereas Timmy remained in a coma for 21 days, and whereas with faith, love, hope, and prayers, Timmy pulled through following a 25-day hospital stay and 88 days as an inpatient at Kessler Rehabilitation Center. And whereas after recovery, Timmy was the honoree at the Amazing Saves Picnic hosted by the Level 1 Trauma Center located at Robert Wood Johnson, where he was excited to tell Dr. Gracias, "You were wrong." And whereas being told Timmy would probably never walk, talk, or breathe on his own, he once again beat the odds with his strength, will, and determination by graduating from Brookdale Community College on May 10th, 2018, receiving an associate's degree in early childhood education. Whereas the Township Committee is of the opinion that such a strong, brave, and determined young man should be memorialized as a lasting tribute to Timmy so that the citizens of the Township of Holmdel will forever be cognizant of his amazing recovery that is truly a miracle. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Township Committee of the Township of Holmdel, hereby commends Timmy for his incredible bravery and love for life, and we wish Timmy continued health and success in all his future endeavors. Mayor Thompson. Claire, Tim, come on.
Tim, get inside.
Tim, get inside. One more minute. We have something, a proclamation from the state.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How are you?
I am well. You are extraordinary from what I'm hearing.
Apparently. That's what I get.
Yes. So, and as a mom, that kind of tugged at my heartstrings a little bit, and then to see your mom. Oh, anyway. I am here on behalf of the state of New Jersey and the Senator O'Scanlan, and Assemblywoman Serena DeMasso. The Senate and the General Assembly of the state of New Jersey are pleased to salute and commend Timmy McDonald, highly esteemed member of the Garden State community, in recognition of his graduation from Brookdale Community College. And whereas Timmy McDonald overcame numerous obstacles to earn his associate's degree after he was struck by a vehicle and entered into a coma while he was a student at Rutgers University. Whereas through the odds were against him, Timmy McDonald persevered and was able to learn how to walk and talk again due to an invaluable service and steadfast dedication of the Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital Kessler Institute for Rehabilitation. Be it resolved by the State and General Assembly of the State of New Jersey, we hereby honor and congratulate Timmy and pay tribute to his record of service, leadership, and commitment, and extends sincere best wishes for his continued success in his future endeavors. This is all we have.
That's the best part of the night.
Thank you, Larry.
I remember you guys.
Quite a learning curve here, Claire. Yes, quite a learning curve up here, that was the honest. Okay, we're going to move on to item 7 and hold a public hearing on the budget.
7 or 6?
Oh, 6. You're right. It's over one number.
He didn't give me the updated agenda. Can you believe that, Ralph?
No, I didn't. No.
Jeanette?
Public hearing.
Right, so you're gonna leave the information out there
So it's not one. Oh, the resolution?
Introduced by title?
Yeah, go ahead,
Okay.
thanks.
We're just introducing by title, folks, based upon the resolution previously adopted, the 2018 municipal budget of the Township of Holmdel, County of Monmouth for the fiscal year 2018.
Thank you.
A little louder.
Would you like me to repeat?
Much better.
Okay, we are just, there was a resolution adopted at a previous meeting that allows the Township Committee to just read the budget by title. So here's the title. It's the 2018 municipal budget of the Township of Holmdel, County of Monmouth for the fiscal year 2018.
Thank you. Jeanette, take over.
Okay, so the 2018 budget, which was formally introduced on April 24th, this budget, as we mentioned before, once again provides for a 0% municipal tax increase, and that would be for the municipal portion of the tax rate when we talk about that. The stabilization of taxes that we have begun to enjoy has been in forward motion since 2015 and has been achieved through teamwork and strategic planning through the departments and the committee alike. 2018 appropriations are in the amount of $23,716,488, and they are well below the New Jersey allowable expenditure appropriation cap by about $920,000. And the tax levy, or the amount that's going to be raised through taxation to support this budget, is in the amount of $14,519,552, which is also under the allowable cap law by more than $930,000. There are some notable decreases in the budget. One of the expenses from last year included funding for tax map revamping. So that was a one-time fee of about $150,000, which is no longer in this budget. And we continue to move the maintenance fees for the open space properties over to the open space fund, which is, part of the reason that fund was created. Some increases that we will see in this budget include a full-time IT department, which we put in place mid last year. So now it's the first full year of funding. A very important department, especially in light of all the cyber threats and just the moving forward with the capabilities through technology. Our debt service has increased by a little over 5% as we continue on the path to aggressively pay down some of the short-term debt that we currently have. We also have an increase in the payment for our deferred charges. This is funds that had not been raised for capital improvement programs that stemmed back to like the year 2000. We have 5 years in which to raise this once these shortfalls were determined, and so we're paying it down sooner. So these funds appropriation will not be in next year's budget either. We also have some funding allocated for some additional staffing in the construction department, which through the redevelopment of the Somerset property as well as the Toll Brothers housing portion has put some stress on the construction department, so we've put some money in there to hire additional inspectors. And plus, there were a couple of positions that we were looking to fill for both the police department, a part-time clerical position, and then some transitional staff for both the clerk's office and the finance offices. Salary appropriations in general have increased across the board due to contractual obligations. On the revenue side, the amount of surplus that we're using to support this budget has increased by about 40%. That was due to the additional cost, the one-time cost that we have in the budget. So we've offset that with additional surplus usage. Our state aid is again flat for 2018. This has been flat since probably 2010. It's estimated that we've lost about $10 million in state aid funding, which that money has to be raised through taxation at the local level. The tax rate for 2018 is anticipated to be about 0.345, which is 34.5 cents. Last year's was about 35, a little over 35 cents. So the rate is actually decreased a little bit. So what that relates to in the amount of taxes is that the total amount to be raised through taxation is $14,519,552, which is actually a decrease in taxes of $7,680. So we're on our way down. Last year was $444, so we're on our way down.
Great job.
This means for the average residential property owner, so the average assessment is $667,458, and that municipal portion of taxes will be $2,303, which is slightly less than it was last year of $2,311. And thanks to the Monmouth County demonstration pilot, Holmdel, like other Monmouth County municipalities, has been able to effectively and efficiently, appropriately reassess properties annually. And what this program does is recalculates the net valuation of the town after the county appeals and then incorporates those differences into the tax rate. So we are no longer paying any money out to deplete our surplus. And the valuation for the municipality has increased about 2% this year over last year. And then finally, the open space budget. As previously mentioned, the fund is finally solvent, which means that we're collecting enough money to pay all the debt service associated with the land purchases, as well as being able to start to fund some of the maintenance of those properties as well. So although the tax remains flat at 2.5 cents per $100 of assessed valuations, the average assessment of assessed property owner is going to be assessed $167, which is an increase of $2 over the prior year. And that is my budget presentation. Any questions you may have?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. And as I've said many times, thank you for your efforts, Donna, working with all the department heads and getting everything tightened up in town all year. Really appreciate the effort. All the zero tax increases, appreciate it. I will open it up for public comment.
Tom, can I just make a comment? I also want to point out with the ADP program that the amount of appeals has gone down huge. So that doesn't just help us from an efficiency standpoint, but from a cash flow standpoint. So it's really been a beyond successful program, and I think it will only continue to benefit the efficiency of Holmdel in the future. So I commend all the lawmakers. I believe Declan O'Scanlan led the charge on that supported that, and I want to thank our assessor, Eric, and all the work he has done. It's a lot of work, puts a lot more onus on him, but at the end of the day, it's a much fairer, more efficient system for the town of Holmdel.
Anybody else in the committee? Comments? Public. Any questions or comments about the budget? Sir, Bill.
The surplus.
Oh, wait,
Sorry. There's no mic down there, right?
It's in the corner.
Want to use this one?
You want me to sit there?
No, here.
I'll get you.
Whatever.
Jerry Buffalino, 20 Barbera Drive. The surplus, is it still 3.7 million thereabouts?
Yes.
So that's about 18% of our total budget thereabouts. Now why does that have to be so large?
Well, yeah, actually, part of the funding is to pay some of the ancillary things like the deferred charges, and so it was increased to pay for those things. If we didn't have those one-time expenditures in there, it wouldn't be quite as much.
So, I mean, when I think about that though, I know by law you're required to have some surplus, is that right? Yes. Do you know how much that is thereabouts?
There's no law on how much surplus you.
So there's no formula for it? Okay.
Right. So just so you understand, it's like, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. So we had, when the budget is, when we're creating the document, we have our revenues, right? The revenues that we can appropriate are based on what we collected in the prior year, right? So prior year's budgets, if we collected $600,000 in court fees, prior years we might say we're going to anticipate the full 600,000. So what we've done over time is reduce those anticipated revenues and up the surplus amount that you're going to be collecting. At the end, we're going to collect more in the anticipated revenues, which is going to go right back into surplus.
Surplus is up about $1.7 million, did I get that right?
It's up a little, yeah, about $1.5 million actually.
So, I know you guys are honoring the fact that you haven't raised taxes, but I look at that as an excess tax on the public. Because it's money that you're not having to spend, even though it's nice to have, but we're paying for it, right? Am I wrong? It's a question. The question is, I think the surplus is excessive at 18% of your total budget, and I understand that you're trying to hedge yourself. But when you're celebrating the fact that you haven't raised our taxes, I look at $1.7 million increase in that as an excess tax. I think my taxes went up by that much.
Anyone else in the public? Sir.
Open to the public?
Not yet, no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Hi, Gene Weber, 4 Duncan Drive. I just don't understand surplus. Is that money cash you collected for last year and surplus of what you needed and you're rolling over? Or what does that mean, surplus?
So we have anticipated revenues that, and as well as other revenues. So the money that supports the budget or monies that are collected in the township aren't just, based on tax collection, right? So we have anticipated revenues for certain, building permits, the court collects monies, we collect monies for liquor licenses and whatever other revenues that we collect in town. When we put together the budget, it has to be, the revenues have to equal the appropriations, right? We have to have a balanced budget. So whatever excess that we collect over what we've anticipated becomes surplus.
And
So it goes
rolls into the next year?
it goes into the bank account, and then when we create the budget for the future year, we can see how much additional funding is in there, and we'll use that to support the budget.
Surplus for this year that you got as revenues, is that money that rolled in from last year, or is it anticipating other revenues?
No, it's excess monies that were collected last year.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
Barbara.
Barbara Singer, 5 Deerfield Road. So to follow up on that question, that the surplus you're just talking about is rolled over from last year. Do we know how much surplus, not including that, is going to be from 2017?
Can't hear you.
Is there a surplus factored into this budget that will be collected in 2017?
You mean 2018?
2018.
I'm following you. No, I mean, I can't anticipate what surplus is going to be. I never know what it is going to be from year to year.
And that's why it's conservative in the budget.
Right. So what happens is, certain things happened in town that we had more funding than anticipated. So that built up the surplus so that we were able to use that money to pay off other items that may have been on next year's 2019's budget, which we might not have quite as much surplus, year over year, depending on what appropriations and what revenues we have. So we had additional monies that we collected through the redevelopment area because of the permits. Thank you. And so that's where most of the money came from, of the additional money. That's where most of it came from. This year, probably not going to collect as much. Right.
Okay, so now just a couple of detailed questions. There's on sheet 9, New Jersey Transportation Trust Fund Authority Act 2017. There's no number. 2018 it's 180,000.
That's a grant that we received from the Department of Transportation.
The previous year, we did not receive a grant.
What's that grant going to be?
It's actually, no, I'm sorry. Actually, we did. So that's going to be used for Middletown Road. Normally, that grant is included in like the capital, so you would never see that exactly singled out. But this year, because the project that it's going to be used for is going to be paid for between the grant money and then money that Somerset Development has paid for the Middletown Road improvements, so it's singled out on the budget.
Okay. And then the private revenue, this is the first year we're seeing that in
Yes,
the budget. That's
correct.
at 299.
And remember what I said, that we can only anticipate what was collected in the prior year.
Right.
So-
So when do the taxpayers, when can we anticipate seeing our taxes rolled back due to the pilot money?
When we start collecting more money.
So not this year?
No, this is this year's budget. That's the reality of it.
Okay. Then, so my question is, with all the surplus being rolled over and that adding up, why do we still have this 1% increase amounting to 171,000 in excess of fund? Why are we doing all that?
I don't know
Has that changed?
what. Okay, so what this is the appropriation cap. That has nothing, that's not tax collections, that's not, what we do is, if we collected $5 million from pilot money, and we wanted, let's just say, you're gonna get upset, let's just say we wanted to increase appropriations by that $5 million. We wouldn't be able to do it, because we're, by law, limited to a certain percentage over the last year's appropriations. What the law does allow us to do is pass an ordinance to allow for an increase, that even if we don't use it, we get to bank it for a couple of years. So each year when we do the budget, you'll always see that ordinance to increase the appropriation cap, not the tax levy, two different things, so that in the event that something comes up and we wanted to add something to the budget, we wouldn't be limited.
So every year that has to be included?
Yeah, it's just, yeah, you'll see it every single year. If you go back to prior years, you'll see
No
it.
matter what surplus you're.
And if you look in the budget, there's a whole calculation, so I think it's on page 3B, of an appropriation cap calculation, and it might give you a little bit more detail on that. for
Okay.
understanding.
And then, sheet 12, under IT administration, it's just other expenses went up from 32,000 to 122,000.
Right, so like I mentioned, that's a brand-new department, and what happened in the past, we used to contract out, and the IT expenses were spread out among the different departments, such as the police department, administration. So for all of our IT costs, the police department have, a lot of programs they run, the town side has a lot. So we've brought it in-house. We have a full-time employee who manages all of that, and we've taken all of those expenses from other budgets and put it into one budget where he manages all the IT expenditures and needs. and
Okay, so
that.
dollars wise, it's kind of moving. money
Exactly, it
around.
was just reallocated.
Okay. Environmental commission went from 1,000 to 14,000. Is there something particular there? That's
It's a record study.
the record study.
There you go.
Right, yeah, it was, yeah.
And then legal
Well, could you
services,
speak closer into the microphone?
legal services.
You can take it off the
Legal services and costs
All
went
right,
from.
turn it on.
It's not. Is that on?
Oh,
That's
there
on.
you go.
Legal services and costs, 215,000 to 240,000. Is there any detailed list of how you come up to the 240?
Well, what happened at the introduction of the budget was that it was recommended or requested that we added additional funding into there. So normally what happens is we have, I can look at trends of what normally gets spent in the legal fund. Or the legal appropriation line, and that's how those costs are derived. So some extra money was added to that line at the request of the committee at the time of the budget introduction.
But for no particular reason, just to have a buffer?
No, there was a reason.
And I don't think speaking to it would be wise. I think.
No.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, so is there anything available to the public to show how the 240 comes to being, even if it doesn't include that additional expense, like all the other?
It's just based on anticipated, expenses. Exactly.
Based on your past legal expenses, so no itemization?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Jay?
Jay, now 18 Lyman Drive. So notwithstanding my background, this is new territory for me. So the delta, the change year over year in the surplus is 1.7 million. Is that correct?
I think I thought it was 1.5. That might be
1.5. Okay. And that can be used any way it needs to be during this year.
No, it's used to offset the expenses that are laid out in the budget already. So we have to have it. It has to be a balanced budget. So that's what it's being used for.
For expenses in the budget already.
Correct.
Okay. And why the big change year over year?
There's a couple of reasons. So there are one-time expenditures that are in this budget that are being supported by the increase. Also, we've reduced the anticipated amount of revenues, which is a conservative way to
I heard you
move.
mention that.
So by reducing things that we've in the past anticipated more money, and by having some, some one-time,
What are the
expenses.
one-time ones, like,
So the deferred charges, in the past was about 138,000. This year we're paying that off, and that was 340,000.
okay.
Then we increased the debt service by about 5%, and that was another, say, additional 200,000 to be paid. And I could take something else out.
While Jeanette's looking at that, can I make one point? I think there's been a couple, more than one person question surplus. I want to think about a couple things. It wasn't that long ago that we certainly weren't looking at surpluses. And while I would concur that it's nice to have dividends come back and pay that down, we're in a rising interest rate environment. It might not be bad to have some cash at hand while we experience this surplus short term. You don't know what the next year brings. Certainly with healthcare under this transformation, and you've seen the incredible increase in healthcare, having a surplus provides flexibility. It's almost like not leaving any money in your checking account. We could probably debate the amount, whether it should be 3.2 or 1.2. But again, if you think about government's responsibility, and we will be retiring debt, how much of an interest rate increase do we see next year, and what kind of bonds and what rate are we borrowing against? Having that surplus really gives us, I think, a huge competitive advantage. So I happen to agree, while I might not agree in perpetuity for this year, I do agree that a strong balance sheet in this environment is very healthy.
Okay, that's fine. I think the sensitivity to the questions in the room where this topic may never have come up before is the various issues we've had over the past however many months you want to talk about of where money may or may not be spent. I think there's a concern in the room, whether it's wrong or not, or the process can be used or not, that this big delta or change in the budget could be used in places where the town residents may not want to use. So are you saying that is not the case? If the committee or certain committee members came up with a project they wanted for $600,000 for X,
Okay.
can that surplus be used to it?
So this is the disconnect. You see this document? This is my Bible. Everything that's in here as an expenditure, that's offset by all the revenues, including the surplus.
Okay.
We can't just say, oh, here's $5 million in surplus.
I think that, because again, we're not proficient in this. This is your job all day.
No,
So that's the sensitivity.
Okay, let me say one thing about Jeanette. I've been up here for 5 years. It took 5 years for her to free up enough money to get us new chairs. The chairs we had up here, and I have a bad lower back, and most of us, that's what she does, they were brutal. There was no lumbar support. She always, no money in the budget. We didn't budget for it, Tom, we can't get you new chairs.
She's cheap.
She finally bought new chairs.
Let me just, for the record, let me just say that I've been here since 2009. So I've been through the worst of it, and we're, gonna come into the best of it. So even though I don't live here, I feel your pain, and believe me, I have everyone's best interest at heart, and so does everyone else here. That's what we do.
Okay.
Jenny Blumenthal, 41 Stony Brook Road. Question 1, how much does the new IT person get paid?
Probably on the ordinance.
It's the person's current hire, that's public record.
Around 90. Around 90. Now, he has benefits and so forth. You probably raised the total cost of the town to $135,000.
Okay.
Is this cheaper than farming it out from what you paid in the past?
For sure, because he's here full-time. In the past, it was part-time. And I can tell you, just from the short time that he's been here, the advances that we've made, you can't even put a price tag on it.
savings that we've seen and security that we have in
Yes.
this environment where we went from here to here. It's been tremendous.
Okay, good. Now, related to the
You
surplus.
can't get anybody for under $125 an hour anymore.
I'm not talking, I was just curious. You know, you get what you pay for. Surplus. Sounds to me like a rainy day fund, which I am led to believe is not allowed. So what is the difference between all of our surplus and a rainy day fund? Because you seem to be holding it for unexpected expenses that might be overrun by the planning of our expenses for next year. And since you have this large, I'll call rainy day fund, why don't you just lower our taxes? And that would take care of your surplus.
It's not a rainy day fund, Jenny. It's something.
Sounds like it
Okay. Well,
when it's raining.
this is something that occurred at year end. This isn't something that's sitting in the bank and that we're
You're
saying.
talking about putting it in the bank in case there's overruns on your costs for 18 or later in the year. No.
It offsets the appropriations that are already in the budget. So you're going to have money that
you're
you're
in the first place.
so that we could operate. It's all the department's expenditures. It's just offset. That's part of the money that offsets, that keeps the tax rate flat and keeps your taxes flat this year. If we were to take more of that surplus and say, just reduce everybody's tax, what am I going to do next year when the surplus doesn't regenerate?
Maybe you'd have a more accurate budget instead of just sort of saying,
You're just, so we can't, whatever budget.
So the budget that's adopted is what we can spend. We can't overrun that budget. Okay, so we budget X amount of dollars, we can't spend more than that.
that's what I thought.
Okay, so there's no, we have money in the bank, we overran the police department overtime, let's grab money out of the surplus. We can't do that. We're bound by this document.
Okay.
So that surplus that Jeanette talks about, it fluctuates each year. Now, as she said, it's going up due to all the building and all some other items that are going on in the town. 3 years from now, we may not see that. So if we take all that surplus and cut everyone's taxes, in 5 years when we have no money, we're going to raise taxes by 8%. So that's what the committee, myself and Jeanette, our department heads, we have to balance. How much can we take this year to give a 0% tax increase, and maybe next year when the surplus increases a little bit more, we can reduce it by 1% or 2%. But right now isn't the time to do that.
Still sounds like a rainy day fund to me. I put money aside in case I need a new roof. And that's called a rainy day fund.
But you can spend your money at will. We can't. We're bound by this document.
Yeah, but if you're stuck at what you said, and you can't spend more than that, then you can't take from this rainy day fund surplus. So it doesn't.
Okay.
Hi, Tom Wood, 27 Bellway.
I can't hear.
Jenny, you turned it off on.
I didn't do it on purpose.
Hello.
There you go.
Okay. I'd like to transition, instead of talking about the surplus, to talk about the capital budget. So I think the capital budget shows something like $6.5 million of new borrowing. Is that about right? And I think that's substantially more than last year, or last year's free borrowing. But round numbers.
So the placeholder for the capital budget is more than the placeholder we had in last year's capital budget, yes. But we're not allocating any funds yet
Of course
in that
not.
budget.
It's a budgeted amount for
Correct.
capital.
Yep.
I understand. Okay. But my understanding is that if we follow the projections in the budget, our total indebtedness will go up, not down. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And it's also true that the total amount we expect to pay for debt service next year will go up, not down. Is that correct? If you follow the projections, it's correct.
Well, if we choose to.
Right, should you choose to. Okay. So, as a taxpayer, my advice, my suggestion to you is that you shouldn't follow the outline of the budget, that allows you to borrow more money than is prudent. Times are good, our budget, our total outstanding bonding should be going down, not up. That's my personal opinion. Of course, it's up to you as representatives to make your own decision. I also noticed that, at least in the copy that I have, the largest single item for new debt is listed as improvements to parks, and that's about $2.7 million, something like that. Okay, so we've heard batted around a lot of ideas about new facilities or fields or domes or God knows what in the parks. So I'll point out that you folks paid more than $50,000 last year to study this subject, and you had a very rigorous survey at the township that you put out, and the overwhelming result of that survey was things are great the way they are, you don't need to do it. So you clearly seem to be, I'll use the term hell-bent to do something, because there are a small number of people who show up at every meeting saying things are bad. So my suggestion to you as a taxpayer is you don't need to spend all that money. That's just my 2 cents. But these things have been pointed out in the budget workshop and everything else, so I'll just talk politics for a second. If you put forward bonding that